Today, I'm going to share with you how to get a top LSAT score as a STEM major. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. I got an email here from a student who writes, "Hi Steve, I'm a mechanical engineering graduate thinking about shifting to patent law. I'm good with numbers and analytical thinking, but the LSAT is tough because it's so verbal. My diagnostic score was a 152, and surprisingly, logical reasoning is my weak area, not reading comp. I've taken a prep course, but it didn't seem to meet my needs. I want to score 170 plus to get into a top law school. How can I use my STEM background to improve my LSAT performance?" Well, first off, there's definitely plenty of hope for you. STEM majors do surprisingly well on the LSAT because it's very technical in nature. And by the way, I also personally started off at a 152 and I ended up with a 175 on test day, so there is plenty of potential for improvement in your case as well. Now, the LSAT rewards analytical, critical thinking, and it is possible to view logical reasoning in a technical, rigorous way. Most questions on logical reasoning are informal logic, meaning that diagramming isn't likely to help you, but that doesn't mean that you can't view logical reasoning through a technical, rigorous lens. I would recommend thinking about it as the following. You have your evidence, you have your conclusion, and you have the gap between the two. So you want to ask yourself, how is it possible for the evidence to be true, yet for the conclusion to be false? The extent to which you can exploit that gap is the so-called flaw in the argument or the underlying necessary assumption, depending on whether you give the arguer the benefit of the doubt or not. Then aside from arguments, of course, you have your fact sets, typically associated with questions like inference questions, where you're simply limited to what is in front of you in the stimulus, and you want to ask what else must be true or what else is likely to be true without bringing in anything outside beyond what was covered in the stimulus. So the same kind of technical, rigorous thinking that you apply in engineering does also apply to the LSAT. The LSAT is not a numbers-based test, of course, but it's not as verbal as you might think. It's not as if we're looking to evaluate a lot of things for their tone or for their symbolism or anything like that. Most questions on the LSAT are actually a lot more straightforward. And on the admission side, by the way, law schools love STEM majors because they're relatively rare and they tend to have great employment outcomes upon graduating. The fact that you have an engineering background certainly lends a lot of credence to the idea that you would actually go into patent law upon graduating, and it suggests that you have an aptitude for that sort of thing, which law schools, again, love to see. Now, the LSAT has a couple of questions on numbers and percentages, which you may be well suited to handle more so than other applicants might. The LSAT has been increasingly including more and more questions on numbers and percentages, testing your ability to evaluate percentages versus absolute numbers and the distinction between the two, because they can no longer test these concepts in logic games since there is no longer a logic games section on the LSAT. Earlier this year, LSAC removed the logic games section and replaced it with a second scored logical reasoning section, and so they're testing these concepts here and there on logical reasoning more and more. So you may want to check yourself on these, see if you're clear on them. If not, you could probably get them pretty easily. The core concept being that a small percentage can still be a very large number, and a large percentage can still be a very small number. So the idea here being that the percentage of the pie does not determine the size of the pie. These are two separate things. If you're finding, by the way, that the one-size-fits-all prep courses are not meeting your needs because you have a unique background relative to a lot of other pre-law students, you may want to consider one-on-one coaching, since it can be more personalized to your specific areas of need versus those of other students. At LSAT Unplugged, we offer private one-on-one coaching programs on a consistent basis where we'll support you now through test date with the same coach throughout the process. If you're interested in finding out more, you can check out the links below this video to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.